It is a scorching July afternoon in 2009. A worried mother stands in the dimly lit basement of a quiet Spanish villa. She opens the chest freezer, reaching for cold drinks to offer the friends who are helping search for her missing son, Hugo. But as the heavy lid rises, the cold air reveals a nightmare. There, nestled among the frost, is not food, but a human arm, tightly wrapped in industrial bubble wrap. In that frozen silence, a mother's hope dies, and a dark, twisted family secret begins to thaw. To understand the horror that unfolded in July 2009, we must first look at the people living behind the walls of the spacious three-story villa near Barcelona. On the surface, it was a typical family home, but inside, it was a house divided. On one side, there was life and anticipation. 30-year-old Hugo Ferrer and his girlfriend, 26-year-old Xianzhi Liang, were the picture of happiness. Xianzhi, a hard-working and outgoing woman originally from Zhejiang, China, had integrated well into Spanish society. She had worked in various boutiques, made local friends, and was known for her vibrant personality. She was 8 months pregnant, and the couple was eagerly preparing for the arrival of their daughter, whom they planned to name Astrid, a name Xianzhi said fit for a queen, not just a princess. Their living space on the second floor was filled with new toys, a crib, and walls freshly painted for the nursery, symbolizing a future full of light. But upstairs, on the third floor, the atmosphere was starkly different. This was the domain of Hugo's older brother, 38-year-old Hector Ferrer, and his wife, Susana Perez. Unlike the sociable and vibrant Hugo, Hector was introverted, gloomy, and deeply isolated. Susana was described by family members as controlling and manipulative, cutting Hector off from the outside world. The brothers had been estranged for years, barely speaking despite living under the same roof, a living arrangement permitted by their mother, Clara, who owned the villa. Neighbors knew of the tension. They had witnessed arguments in the yard, remnants of a fractured childhood defined by their parents' bitter divorce. The house was a ticking time bomb of contrasting lifestyles. The joyful noise of Hugo's friends visiting versus the suffocating silence of Hector's seclusion. The clock stopped on July 25th. Hugo and Xianzhi suddenly went silent. Calls from friends like Nicolas Gomez went unanswered. Nicolas, worried because the couple never missed a gathering, visited the villa on July 27th. Hector opened the door but was dismissive, claiming his brother had gone away for the weekend, before quickly shutting the door in Nicolas's face. This behavior raised immediate red flags. Hugo never went anywhere without telling his friends, especially with Xianzhi so close to her due date. By July 28th, Hector and Susana had also vanished. Hugo's mother, Clara, desperate for answers, arrived at the villa with a group of Hugo's friends. She found her key wouldn't work. The locks had been blocked from the inside. With police authorization, they entered through an unlocked terrace window. The house seemed eerily normal, albeit a bit messy. But in Hugo's bedroom, they found Xianzhi's handbag on the nightstand, containing her ID and wallet. No pregnant woman leaves for a vacation without her purse. The true horror, however, was waiting in the basement. The next day, July 29th, while searching the house again, Clara went to the chest freezer to get cold drinks for the search party. As she lifted the lid, expecting to see ice or food, she screamed. Buried under bags of frozen goods was a shape wrapped in industrial bubble wrap and tape. An arm was visible. The police were called back immediately. Inside that freezer were the dismembered remains of Hugo Ferrer, cut into 4 packages, and beneath him, the intact body of Xianzhi Liang, her unborn child still in her womb. The villa, once a symbol of family property, was now a sealed crime scene. Investigators began to peel back the layers of what happened, and what they found was not a crime of passion, but a slaughter executed with chilling calculation. The autopsy reports painted a grim picture. Hugo had been stabbed 8 times. The fatal wound was a severed pulmonary artery, but strangely, he had no defensive wounds. His body showed no signs of struggle, despite his strong physique. Xianzhi had been strangled to death, with marks indicating one person strangled her, while another covered her mouth and nose. Like Hugo, she had no defensive wounds. Police theorized that the killers had used a volatile anesthetic gas to incapacitate the couple before the attacks, rendering them helpless as they were murdered in their own home. But the physical evidence found throughout the house was even more disturbing. In Hector and Susanna's bedroom, police discovered a notebook that read like a shopping list for a massacre. It detailed the items needed: industrial bubble wrap, heavy-duty trash bags, rubber gloves, wide adhesive tape, and an assortment of cutting tools. Following this list were handwritten instructions, a step-by-step guide on how to kill Hugo, how to dispose of Xianzhi, and how to clean the scene. The handwriting matched Hector's. The house itself was an arsenal. Investigators recovered over 200 knives scattered across the property. In a travel bag in the upstairs living room alone, there were more than 100 blades. While most had been washed, police found traces of Hugo's blood on 3 of them. On a bookshelf, sitting in plain sight, was a DVD set of the TV show Dexter, a series about a forensic technician who leads a double life as a serial killer, famous for his plastic-wrapped kill rooms and meticulous cleanup methods. It seemed Hector hadn't just watched the show, he had studied it. The killers had tried to scrub the villa clean. Initially, police found no blood. It was only through chemical reagents that they found traces in the bathtub on the 2nd floor, likely where the dismemberment took place, and small smears on the stairs leading to the basement. They had likely covered the walls and floors with plastic sheets, just as Dexter would have, to contain the carnage. They had even found a roll of leftover bubble wrap that matched the material used on the bodies. The level of premeditation was staggering. They had planned to erase Hugo and Xianzhi not just from life, but from existence, fueled by a dispute over selling the house and a deep-seated envy of Hugo's growing family. Despite their meticulous planning, Hector and Susanna made one critical error. They couldn't control the outside world. The police reconstruction revealed a moment of high tension that likely sealed the killer's fate. On the night of July 25th, hours after the murders, the middle brother, Mario, unexpectedly arrived at the villa to crash after a night of partying. He found the front door locked and saw Susanna nervously rushing inside, refusing to open it. When Hector finally let him in minutes later, the couple had been in the middle of moving the bodies to the basement. Mario, drunk and tired, went to sleep in a guest room, unaware that his brother and sister-in-law were likely scrubbing blood just walls away. This interruption caused panic. In their haste to hide the evidence from Mario, Hector left fingerprints on the sticky side of the tape used to wrap the body bags and on the freezer handle. These prints would become the undeniable link to the crime. On July 28th, realizing the walls were closing in, Hector and Susanna fled. They drove north, crossing the border into France. To throw off the police, Susanna drove Hugo's car to a nearby town to make it look like the couple had gone on vacation before rejoining Hector. During their escape, they lived out of their car to avoid detection. They ditched their phones and used only cash. For over a month, they were ghosts. But on September 16th, a routine patrol in Le Havre, France, spotted a car with Spanish plates. The couple inside looked disheveled and acted suspiciously. A search of the vehicle revealed knives and plastic sheeting. They were still carrying the tools of their trade. During the trial in 2012, the courtroom witnessed the chilling lack of remorse from the accused. Hector and Susanna sat in stony silence, their expressions blank. Psychiatric evaluations described them as narcissistic and devoid of empathy. The prosecution argued that the motive was a toxic cocktail of jealousy and hatred. Hector and Susanna, childless and miserable in their isolation, could not bear the sight of Hugo's happiness and the celebration of the new baby. They didn't just want Hugo gone. They wanted to extinguish his joy. The jury found them guilty. Because they refused to speak, the court could not determine exactly who held the knife or who tightened the rope, so they were both sentenced as co-conspirators. They received 38 years in prison each, 18 years for Hugo and 20 years for Xianzhi and her unborn child. For Hugo's friends, the tragedy was a heartbreaking end to a life full of promise. But for Xianzhi's family in China, it was an incomprehensible nightmare. They could not understand why their daughter, who had done nothing but love and live, became the target of such senseless evil. In the end, the baby named Astrid remains only a whisper of a future that was stolen in the cold dark of a basement freezer.